What's up, man?
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
What up, man? What's the joke? What you laughing at?
Ain't no joke, man. I'm just listen. I don't know what
they. I have spinach in my teeth. Come on, man.
Listen, I don't know what, man. It might have been something in the water or the pregame. I don't know, but you know.
Hey, yo, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Man, good, man. Interesting week, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You know, when you do the work that we do, man, I love it because I'm dealing with people. People they come with complicated and complex, you know what I'm saying, variables.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is related to, you know, what we do professionally. Man, it's just so interesting to, you know, to consider the diverse situations that people go through, yet how similar it is we are to each other and how we deal with certain situations. You know what I'm saying? You ever notice anything like that? You ever thought it was just you and then you talked to three people and they all had the same experience?
Yeah. You know what though? The craziest part about it happens so often when you sit back and you're like, man, you thought it was just you, and then it pops up and there's more people, and that makes it even more scary.
Yes.
Right? Because you realize that it's not just maybe a one-off, or it just so happened to be your luck. It makes you feel like it might be built in.
Right. I always question, like, yo, how can I be shocked and then not surprised at the same time?
Correct.
Like, that's what? Like, how does that even happen? And you know, man, I'm so excited about tonight's broadcast, tonight's episode. You know, welcome to the Corporate Trauma, the Level Up Past Corporate Trauma podcast. Welcome to all the great people in our community out there that listen to us every week. And we got a great subject matter lined up tonight. One that, Rob, we've gotten some major traction from in some of our other social media platforms, and that's dealing with narcissists. And people put all kind of monikers on difficult personalities that they deal with personally and even professionally. But especially, you know, when your paycheck is tied into it, right? And you making life decisions based off of the difficult nature of this person's personality. And one of the things that I've discovered that had been so interesting to me is really understanding the mindset of a narcissist, because they're not evil people, but the results, the impact, especially on people like us who work on behalf of other people and their experiences, their learning processes, or whatever it is that you do on behalf of other people. Like, you have to be vulnerable. You have to have a certain level of empathy. And that is the narcissist mindset is just the other side of the spectrum.
Well, you know, the most interesting piece about it, being able to convince yourself of an alternative reality, or convince yourself that you are truly the sun in the universe, right, in the solar system. In some cases, you kind of got to admire somebody who can find a way to build out, or who has an awesome imagination to the point that it's real to them, right? It's kind of scary. It's kind of scary,
bro.
It's kind of scary. But the idea that someone can sit back and truly believe something to the point that it's reality to them. Right. And that's why sometimes folks get a pass. And I won't lie to you, I'm not giving them a pass.
Right.
And once you have okayed the results or the impact that you'll have with people, I'm still seeing you evil. So if you nope. Once you said, yeah, I don't care what happens, this is my world, you're just living in it, and you know, I gotta get hit by a bus because of how you interact with things, you're evil. But that's just me. You know, that's just me. But just even when I looked it up, and it's like, wait, people really give a medical diagnosis for this. Like, that was a shocking piece for me. Like, I didn't know. I just thought people just say, oh, you're a narcissist and you're just one of those type of people. And then I looked it up and I said, well, they gave it a medical term. And instantly I said, this must be something that people with power have. And and there's a lot of them. Because there's always somewhere or some way or somewhere that someone is able to get a pass. Well, it happened because I had this. And I was already diagnosed with this. And it's like, well, why you don't be diagnosed with having a happiness syndrome?
Right.
How you get this bad stuff? You know? Right. So yeah, that's how I kind of look at it.
And you bring up a great point, because we only talk about narcissism or narcissists when it comes to it as a personality, quote unquote, disorder. But there's levels to it, right? There's there's degrees to it. And so if you're not identified as having the narcissistic personality disorder, displaying traits of a narcissist is not readily identified in a way where people can try to not label you, but really put an understanding on how your mind works and what makes you tick. If you are, displaying narcissistic, traits, like I could be narcissistic, when I'm dealing with my son, and things of that nature, as parents and whatnot, we dealing with children when there's a power dynamic and stuff like that. Doesn't mean I have narcissistic personality disorder, but you only hear that word when it's associated with the disorder, right?
Correct.
So everybody else gets a pass, right? And then
so it sounds like
so there's no, so when you meet some of these difficult personality types, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to narcissism. You give them a pass because it's like, all right, that's just how they are. That's just what they do. This is,
correct.
And we got to call it out so that there's understanding, so that a discussion can take place. Because like I said in the beginning, like, they're not, narcissists aren't evil. And maybe me and you disagree on that, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Evil is what evil does. You know what I mean?
This is when I say anything about evil, right? I say I classify people in groups in this order. Either you don't know, you don't care, or you don't give a damn. Right?
Narcissists are all three.
Now, when you don't give a damn, and I guess don't give a damn for me is you don't give a damn, but then also you're evil, right?
Right.
So when you think about from the evil perspective, you actually know the impact of what you're doing. You know who and how it's going to hurt people.
Right.
And you're okay with that. Die. I don't care if your house blows up as long as I get mine. That to me is evil. That's just me personally. Not giving a damn is just like, well, if something happened to you, it happens to you. I'm not wishing for it to happen, but so be it. Not knowing is one thing. Right. Like, and so for me, I just look at it from that standpoint. You can't tell me if you knew what was going to happen and you just like, well, okay, he's just gonna lose his legs. I just look at that as evil.
Yeah.
And that's just me. We'll disagree, but that's just me.
Yeah. But you know how it relates to corporate trauma. And once I started to, because I've had to personally deal with these difficult personalities that I have, and I'm not a subject matter expert, have identified as narcissism or narcissistic tendencies, right? Like I know people, I can name them. Right? They live in my head rent free if I'm not careful. Right? But when I started to peel back and do my own research and start to educate myself on these different personality types, and I came across narcissism, and then I laid it on top of corporate trauma as a transparency, what became clear to me, it may not be clear to other folks, is that whoever came up with how business and industry is done within the corporate industrial complex designed it upon a narcissist mindset, or a narcissist designed it. Just the overwhelming care of itself at the detriment of others and the little people, right? You know, the corporate industrial complex don't care how you feel. There is no empathy, right? There is no transparency. I only want to know what I need to know about you as long as it benefits productivity at the end of the day. And then I'm going to say, right, we're a team, right? All for one and one for all, and I'm with you. But at the end of the day, how you are identified in HR is through an employee ID number that is called an FTE, or full-time employee, and you're not even a person because you're identified as a block of 40 hours. There's no dossier that says Jamal is married, Jamal has 3 children, Jamal is this and that. So when we start to make decisions based on him, whether it be promotion, whether it be transferring him from one department to the other, or when it comes down to whether or not he continues to work with us or not, all we're looking at is that equation that adds up to your 40-hour week block that makes you an expenditure on that spreadsheet of, you know, payroll, right? It's nothing about that mortgage or that car payment, or nothing about you personally. That is narcissism at its purest. And whoever came up with this stuff, you know what I'm saying, either was a narcissist or is based on the narcissistic.
Well, how about the craziest thing about it is that, and then as individuals, you're taught not to be that unless you're taught to be the boss.
It's mixed messages,
right? Unless you're taught to be the boss, and let's be upfront.
Yep.
Anyone who is considered to be in certain places the ruling class, or those who are in power, your expectation is that you're the one who deserves, right? You're the one who's supposed to get certain things, and there is no such thing as someone else feeling that way, because for you to feel that way, peasant, right? You're going against the natural order of things, and the natural order is for me to use you as a stool. Now, if people haven't realized my way of looking at all these things, it can't be individualistic things or individuality on one end, and then throw your individuality to the wind on another.
You can't
So
have
even
both ways.
you can't. So even as we go into companies, you're expected to fall in line and help them get these resources or get these dollars for the shareholders, right? Period. There is no more Brother Jamal. There is no more Rob Felder. You are one, right? It sounds real Matrix for those who hopefully who are old enough, right? It sounds like you're in the Matrix. You are part of the system, period. So for me, I'm always saying to folks, listen, you either know or you don't know. And if you don't, and I'll say this, I had a mentor say, he said, you're either at the table or you're on it.
Right.
Right? You're either at the table or you're on it. And for me, I just think a lot of times folks just go with the flow. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's just how things go. Brother Jamal, that's just America. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just capitalism. Oh, that's just socialism. Oh, that's just white people. Oh, that's just black people. That's just men. That's just women. And ultimately, you got to kind of look at it and say, but you're the person that's being impacted regardless of who they are. So if you're giving the pass to someone who at all points in time is trying to get theirs, I just say something you got to own up to it as well. Like you accepting that.
No, that's a fact. You know, I'll give you a personal anecdote, right? I got a phone call yesterday from a mid-career professional that I had the opportunity to help jumpstart their career, who is friends with a peer who I've had the same relationship with, helping them early on in their career. And her friend, is has been over the last 18 months ill, in and out of medical care, right? And the individual who called me said, yes, so I left the organization that we both were working at. However, the other individual who's been sick, I haven't heard from her. So to the point where I called my old job, I called around looking for people, and they hadn't heard from her.
Yeah.
Right. In a week. Now with social distance, virtual working, hadn't heard from her. And based on, and this is real, I literally had this conversation yesterday, and based on job boards and requisitions that are out there, there was a movement afoot to replace this individual. And my friend was like in an uproar emotionally because this is a close friend I haven't heard from in a week, and I know that she's not doing well. I know that she's physically ill. And we finally got word last night that this young lady is in ICU.
Oh, wow.
Intubated. Ooh. Without the ability to communicate to her job. But the movement afoot was to replace, and we have not heard, nor have we tried. We don't have any answers.
Yeah.
But we know that there's medical history here that would explain that there could be a reason why this individual may not necessarily be responsive right now. Now that's an extreme case, right? But when I think about and I roll back what was going through the head of the powers that be within this organization, I'm thinking about HR. I'm thinking about compliance issues. I'm thinking about HERPA laws. I'm thinking about who is willing to stay later at work to make the extra phone calls to figure out where this individual is. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And we have gotten this far. Now, mom and pop or smaller organizations and firms usually don't have these issues. But the bigger we get, and ironically, the more people that work within these organizations, the more disconnected we get because it's production over people.
Yeah.
And this is why, right? People are not only stopping to smell the roses, they have decided that I'm not going to continue to walk by them anymore, and I'm not going back to work. The person who brought me this news said I resigned before I was due my next bonus because I just could not do it anymore. And see, I'm like, where are we at? What's making people, do this? And it's dealing with that old paradigm that's built on the narcissist mindset. And man, but I want to, I've been waiting to kind of throw that at you, see what you think, before we introduce our special guest for tonight.
Yeah, and I'll keep it short. For a system to work, you have to have people buy in, right? And once you give people the okay that it's not their job to care, many people will not, right? And you can perform bad acts on behalf of other people and just say it was your job, right? And I remember saying to someone that I was working with, and it will relate to why people didn't follow up with that person. And I said, man, there's probably some people who should be fired, who should probably go to jail, or probably never work in politics again because of how they interacted with the former president, right? Where they co-signed certain things,
right?
Or they let certain things slide because he was the president,
right?
I.e., some of those folks who were talking about COVID in the beginning and knowing that certain things wasn't making sense, but because they didn't want to be locked out the room, they kind of tried to gloss over it. And then as soon as he was gone, it was like, well, yeah, that was wrong. But we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who probably would have moved a little bit differently and possibly would still be alive if it wasn't about your job. So I say that just to say, as we're in these positions, it's cool, and I understand you may not be the narcissist, right? You may be doing it with honest intentions, like, hey, you know what? I really need this job. Most importantly, my wife is pregnant, or I'm pregnant as the woman, and I need health care. Right. But there's also someone who is probably above you, who's probably trying to figure out who should be fired for no other reason but to make the profits look better. who they're in a position, if they don't take into account your actual life and who you are, and they just look at you as a number, then you might lose those benefits and those opportunities as well. So I just say, I wish at some point in time, we could get away from, well, it's just business, to starting to get around to, hey, we're people, and we exist past our badges.
As if people ain't business, right? We could be proficient at all forms of business except for people business. Well, I'm glad that I don't get it. I don't have the responsibility to talk about this because I can talk in circles, and I don't like to get caught up in my own past emotions and feelings and experience. So, Rob, we've invited what I would deem as a subject matter expert, Miss Keyanna Blass of the Dark Sugar Podcast, who I feel, in my humble opinion, is a very strong voice, someone who is educated and is educating others, literally, right? And takes it upon herself to bring what she knows and what she has found, especially when it comes to human relational politics, right? And the interaction of people with other people to the broader community, to kind of make space for this discussion. And she has extensively put out content and talked about narcissism specifically, but that's not the only thing Ms. Blass talks about colorism, right? Which is a very rich subject for people of color. Talks about the imposter syndrome and how it breaks down into racial nuances, right? But she has a very, very attractive approach that is a generational gap, right? It's appealing and understanding to people that are way more seasoned than we are, right? And then also she has the ability through her content, which is so clear, so clean, and so crisp. I really encourage everybody to check out the Dark Sugar podcast and Keyanna on all of the social media platforms, because she also has the ability to attract and be magnetic to younger generations and the least seasoned of us, right? You know, as far as it comes to this professional world as we navigate the corporate industrial complex and approaching these difficult personalities. So welcome to the podcast, the Level Up Past Corporate Trauma podcast.
Hey.
Keyanna Blass. We gotta give you some spirit fingers. How you doing?
Good. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. I just love you guys' dynamic, and I'm so, this topic is not researched a lot nor talked about a lot. So, I'm excited. This is good.
Well, I tell everybody, Rob, in my head, is Jamal 2.0.
Yeah.
He's the bigger, better version of where I come from, right? And that's what our dynamic is.
Yeah.
But where we from, Rob? Two people that is as similar to each other, like you and I, where we from, it usually ain't smooth. So in a lot of occasions, we usually sizing each other up because that's that narcissistic, you know what I mean? Like, if he's here, then they don't need me, so I got to find a way to get rid of him. You know what I'm saying? You ever feel like that, Rob?
well, two things I would say. Man, nobody is better than Jamal talking about other people. Keyanna, my goodness. I feel like I know everything about you. I know your mama, your dad. I know your whole entire resume. I'm like, my goodness, could I get a piece of that resume? Could I at least look at it and get it signed with your autograph? I'm like, she's doing some awesome things. That brother comes in and he lays the foundation for who you are. I want to make sure I say that before I forget. So awesome, and it is awesome to have you. The second piece, brother, that's easier to do when I know my lane and you know your lane.
Exactly.
Right. And just because we're tall and we're dark skinned and we're handsome, right? I talk my talk every episode, right? I talk my talk every episode. Especially when I got a fresh cut. If I'd had a fresh cut, I'd have been spinning around in circles on this one, right? But when you're concerned,
you got your profile. All right.
when you're concerned and you believe that the only race you can run is the race that other people are in, especially those who look like you,
right? You'll
always have issues with doing things with folks who are from places that you're from, right. And that's not us. Because I'm just like, listen, we gonna hoop. If you gonna put up 50, I'm gonna put up 50. But at the end of the day, whatever we score, they getting blown out. That's all I'm expecting. And then when we bring in Keyanna from the Dark Sugar podcast, I gotta just say it like that, from the Dark Sugar podcast, blah, 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 right? It only adds to what we do.
Right.
And even as folks look at it, and they're like, man, and there might be some folks who are on your page and on our page, and they're like, man, everybody they bring up there is brown. And it's like, yo, because we pop, one, this melanin gonna be popping, right?
Right.
Two, we want people to experience things that they're not used to experiencing.
Right.
And that's hearing voices and seeing faces that look like ours.
Right.
And being able to be authentic. And one of the best people who was that, right? For all of his what's the word that I'm looking for? And I'll end it here. Yes, and I'm about to go for your shirt. Yes, I am. Yes.
Wait, can I pause 1 second?
Yes,
My mom's
you can.
playing piano.
Hey, you good?
I'm so sorry.
You go ahead.
No, she must have heard me. Hey, wait. Her mom must have heard me. Right. People. She's in the background singing. We don't know which way to go.
Keyanna got her own theme music.
We're just ordinary people.
You got your own theme music.
Right? But for all of his contradictions,
pop.
That brother was dope.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm talking about Tupac. I don't know if y'all can see her shirt. Yes, yes.
Yes.
I was gonna bring it up, but someone when I was in college, and he said, yo, but the dude contradicts everything he says, right? It could be Brenda has a baby, and then it could be, hey, I get around, right? It could be all these different things, and I think that sometimes we just fail to realize, but that's just life.
Yeah,
you know, it's life, complex. Right? But we just expect for everyone else except us, right? We want everybody else to be awesome. We want everyone else to do all these different things, but accept us for our shortcomings. And I'll just leave it there. So welcome to the podcast, Keyanna.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, because complexity and being complicated, man, is the spice of life. You know, what would life be without complexity? So, Ms. Blass, the educator, the subject matter expert for the evening, please introduce yourself and tell the good people out there in the Level Up Past Corporate Trauma podcast a little bit about yourself.
My name is Keyanna. I'm the host of Dark Sugar Podcast. I've been an educator for about 4 years. I'm currently transitioning to academic counseling. So that's what I'll be doing this upcoming semester on college campuses.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm pursuing my master's, but just not sure what yet. But I've always been super passionate. As you say, human relation politics. I'm like that. I'm gonna steal that.
You gotta give you credit for the first 3 times you say it, and then after that, you're good.
No, we're good. Okay.
And listen, give him $4, $1 for each time, and then just go. Give him an extra $1 as a tip.
No, honestly, because that I think perfectly explains what I think. It's like a little bit of sociology, a little bit of biology, a little bit of, just how we interact with each other, the different perspectives in which we do that, and how it affects us in the day when we go home. Because I think that the biggest thing is a lot of the times we think the way other people are acting don't affect us. Oh, that's them. Well, that's them. This is me. But then it's like, no, in this world, everything we do and even the way we think and view each other, it has like just such monumental impact. So that's me. That's what I'm about.
Yeah, and we need you, and we need more people like you, right? Like if I forget his name, if the president of Goya Foods had somebody like you in his ear space before he endorsed what he's endorsed politically and alienated his whole customer base, like that conversation may be a lot different, because people are their value of individuality and who they are and how they add into the pot has been pushed to the back of the stove for so long that it sounds foreign and almost insane to concentrate on the complexities of people that we depend on to do the work that's out there to be done. So we need more people like you. You remind me of the impact and what you're doing of the one of my favorite TV shows growing up, The Cosby Show, and the creators of The Cosby Show found it necessary to have a clinical psychologist be over the script and be a major part of that production. And as a result of that TV show, The Cosby Show of the 80s and A Different World, right? Thousands of people of color in particular, went to college that probably would not have, right? And so that's because somebody who was concentrated on the ideas of the people. And one of the things that people find it difficult in their dynamics with each other is dealing with personality types that they deem difficult. And one of your highlighted pieces of content is dealing with narcissists. So can you tell us some key identifiers and characteristics of narcissists generally that people can kind of warm up to as they go back to work tomorrow and kind of look around their Zoom session or their cubicles and really understand who they spend 8 to 10 hours a day with?
Yeah, totally. I think The one interesting thing about narcissism is that it's one of these personality traits that has a lot of components to it. And sometimes when these components aren't there, it's not narcissism, but there's still things separately to look out for. So one is someone that's two-faced, which I feel like that's kind of like a common thing that we grow up hearing, especially like in school when you're in elementary school. Oh, they're two-faced, they're two-faced. But when you grow up and when you're an adult with real life shit going on, someone that's two-faced is very, very dangerous.
Right.
Someone that gossips a lot, someone that contradicts themselves, their intentions and their words don't match. And I think one biggest thing that I think is overlooked, a key symptom is they just feel off to you and you just don't know why. That is enough. The fact that something's kind of off about them, that's enough. Because that they're when you're around a narcissist, your body will send you, they're called flight signals. And it's this literal, like, instinctual thing in your gut. Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And a lot of people who are trauma survivors from emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, they'll admit, and even myself, yeah, I was standing there like, what is wrong with this person? What is wrong? They act so weird. What is wrong? I was so caught up wondering what was wrong. So another thing is they triangulate, which is a form of gossiping when they put two people against each other. And I've had it done so blatant. So I'll just be like, so like Rob will be like, oh man, Jamal was a little late yesterday, whatever. And then I'm like, Jamal, Rob said that you were late yesterday. And I just like, guys, I don't say someone said, I say Rob said, and I triangulate you guys and, stir drama. I think conversation from person to person, especially if you're an empath, a narcissist will one-up you. They have to win all the time in the conversation. They won't take accountability. Because we all make mistakes, right? So if I bring something up to you, you maybe said something, it kind of hurt my feelings. The narcissist will be like, they'll give a ton of excuses. And if they do apologize, the true apology is changed behavior, right? So even if a narcissist does apologize, if their behavior has not changed, that wasn't an apology. So they either can't take accountability, or when they do apologize, they're lying. And the behavior will remain the same. And you can get really caught up. It can be very manipulative. And I think there are levels to the unconscious ways. There are levels of consciousness to a narcissist because unfortunately it is a trauma wound that has developed into a personality disorder. So, some of them are very, very aware. Some of them unfortunately aren't aware because no one's told them. They've gone through their whole life with these people who enable them, don't say anything, people that don't have boundaries, unfortunately. And the narcissist sometimes literally is shook. Like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be acting like this. So I feel like the key things for narcissism is just someone that you don't get along with and you don't like. You don't have to like them.
Right.
And that might be some of y'all baby daddies. That might be some of y'all wives. That might be some of y'all girlfriends.
A lot of breakups going on right now.
Yeah, and it's all your fault, Keyanna. But you know what? As I was listening to you, I think sometimes folks end up trying to make people into something different, into people that they are not. And that's something that I learned a long time ago. Like, I trust my gut. If I get around you and I'm like, you off, you are off. As they come in here jumping into you about to hear a squadron of elephants running to the house. But as you sit and you process, like, there are some folks who, like, you end up spending so much time trying to change people that you lose yourself. And I hear so many people talk about, oh, I knew something was off, but there was some good things about it, right? And I think sometimes people treat people like food, right? You might go to someone's house and the plate of food that they give you, the macaroni and cheese tastes good. The cabbage is bad. chicken is bad, and all these other pieces are bad. What do? You eat the macaroni and cheese, and you hope that they do not find out that you threw the rest of the plate away, right? You don't try and fix it up. Like, you might put some salt and pepper on it, but if you realize it just tastes completely bad, you're like, you know what? All right, when they turn their back, either I'm gonna have to leave, or better yet, I'm gonna take the plate to go, and when I walk outside, I'm gonna fling that thing, right? But in relationships, so when people that we meet, or even at work, we're always trying to fix something. We're trying to figure out how we could turn a bad plate of food into this 7-course meal that comes from a diamond star restaurant, so that we can prance around and say, hey, look what I have. And look where I came from, and look where I am now. That's what I got from you when I was listening. I said, yep, I know some people who have tried and they have completely failed.
Yeah, I think what's hard is that to really break down narcissism as a trauma wound. So it's like, so when you said that, I'm laughing because I give the same example to my friends, and I use food. Well, I'm gonna just say I use a restaurant, and I say, I'm like, wait.
Yes, I've been on the calls. Like, I am that guy. Like, I've been on the calls when you were talking to your friends. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the therapist friend. And I'm like, girl, so if you go into a restaurant, it's dilapidated, toe up, roaches, food's bomb. Was it a great restaurant? Was it great? Would you go again, even though the food was bomb? And my friend was just like thinking. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, no, one good thing doesn't make the whole. And I had to realize that too. But I think a lot of those times what we're really enacting in other people is our own trauma. So if I'm desperately trying to fix you, what I'm really doing is, if I fix you and make you right, I'm right, and then I'll be okay. Because what I'm really probably acting out is how maybe I had to abandon myself for an abusive parent or an abusive caregiver. I'm really, so like, when people are in those unconscious cycles with narcissists, with energy vampires, with these people, one, they don't have very good boundaries. I would know because I'm still trying to learn damn boundaries myself. Because when I was with narcissists, I didn't have any. And that's how my friends would be like, oh my God, how could you be in a relationship with somebody? Well, one, I had no self-esteem, ma'am. And two, I had no boundaries. That's how you, it's like, that's how you do it. You know, we don't walk into these relationships thinking that they're, you know, we don't go into them thinking that they're fun. And usually they are fun at first. That's the thing. Usually the narcissist, the two-face is when they're like, hey, you know, I'll be here for you, and they'll say that and then do the opposite. And so if you're used to having these dual realities in your life, you're going to be like, okay, I can do this. And you're going to think that shit's a challenge for your inner child, instead of being like, oh no, actually this is depleting my energy.
Wow.
So you have to be so aware of yourself.
But you know what else though?
Yeah.
Oh, but Rob, before you ask that,
go ahead.
What does that look like for people at work?
Boundaries. And it's hard, but you need boundaries, and you need to say no sometimes. And you need to assert yourself the day one when you walk over. Because a narcissist, they don't like the truth and they don't like boundaries. Will that person change and act right once you start acting right? No, they're going to be there. They're going to do what they do. But I don't know, like, boundaries. Like, I remember I used to have this one person, and she definitely had narcissistic traits. And once I started to like really focus on myself and have boundaries, she was moved to a different department. So I was like, that was God. But it was like, this person, I would tell them something one day, next day the principal knows it. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't for you, but cool. Or, you know, we're, you know, trying to work together on lesson plans. They don't want to take accountability for some of the things that I just was like, oh my God, it just makes, sometimes it's really hard because that person might be your boss, where like you can't do anything. And
look, keep going. Keep
I
going.
in that
Oh, hey Rob, I'm over here like
in that aspect, you need boundaries. I'm just thinking about to my own experience, because I was in the experience with the teacher that I'm talking about at that school. I had to end up leaving because I was just a rabbit hole. I didn't assert myself. I was a yes person right when I walked in. Yes, yes, yes to everybody, whether you're a narcissist. Yes, 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 yes. And then I was at the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, I had no boundaries. Like, even though there was this power structure, I feel like there were ways I still could have advocated for myself. I couldn't necessarily go back in time and figure out what they were exactly, but I'm like, somewhere in there was me, because somewhere I don't know, because with narcissism, at one point you are enabling. So that's where you have to get your boundaries down. And yeah, that's saying no.
yeah. Rob, you was gonna say something.
But you know what's crazy? And you bring it even more it makes it more apparent as you gave the answer that you just gave to Jamal's question. But a lot of times before you get to the restaurant with the roaches, the rats, and a dilapidated building, you get a order from DoorDash. And the food that you received is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The interview that you had with the company was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The people that was in HR, the recruiting department, they were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That first view of those people that show up to you are awesome. So, and then you'll say, like you ask your friends, you said, well, is it an awesome, like, is it a great restaurant? It's a great restaurant until I go there. But if my first interaction is the food, like for some people, it's going to be the conversation. It's going to be the interaction. It's going to be all these things before you actually get to this person showing you all of their traits. Before you get the opportunity to see all of these things about the narcissism or the narcissistic ways that they have, you're going to see the nice things. Just like when we go to companies, just like when we go to different family members' homes, you see certain things the longer you're around them. Because who they truly are can't hide. It's going to pop out the box, and it's going to say, ah! And you're going to like, oh my goodness, I felt it, but the food was good, the sex was good, or the money was good. Whatever it is, that first thing that you get, that first interaction is usually the smoke screen. It just depends on how long they can keep it up if it's not truly who they are.
And you know what's crazy is that the narcissist in leadership will put the empath in the HR and recruiting department to attract the people that they need. So the front is even an aspect of the narcissist behavior. I'm like, how was this experience that? And then I get up in here and what's going on is totally against the mission of the organization that I am associated with, right? And this is and this is real like life experiences that I've had, right?
Talk
in
about
relationship to the actual people that work there and do the work that they're doing. They're not the recipient of the benefits of that same stuff from the organization, but you have to take those mixed messages and still execute those things for people outside of the organization. It's unbelievable. Keyanna, you bring up a great point.
I think you hit a nerve. Keyanna, I think you hit a nerve. And if it wasn't for the fact that he said he will not cry on this podcast, he might have shed a tear.
I'm crying inside my eyes. But I saw you when Rob said you lose yourself dealing with these people. That set something off with you, Keyanna. What were you thinking in that moment?
Well, I recently disconnected from a friend who was a narcissist. Personally, I think she has NPD, the beginning stages of it. And I remember I was in college and I was in therapy. I've been in therapy for a long time, but I was in therapy and I was venting about her. Oh my God. And my therapist was like, okay, let's talk about you now. I was so embarrassed. You're telling me I've been talking to this girl my whole session?
Living rent free in your head.
I'm just going off about her life. And that's how but that's how over involved that her problems were my problems.
Rent free.
It wasn't like I'm just obsessed with her, or you just talk about your friends a lot. No, she was literally my top priority.
Rent free.
Of course I'm gonna talk to her my therapy. No, I was lost in the sauce. And unfortunately, the closer you are to the narcissist, what like the microscope, how does it work? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
Your perceptions, like, you're so close you can't see the bigger
it's warped. Yeah, things are warped.
It's so warped. So I literally lost myself for years. And that made me attract more narcissistic people because of the pattern. And for a couple of years I was not on. I was maybe like 5th on my to-do list, priority list, and my life kind of like stopped. And I have that parallel because now I've gotten rid of so many people, so many toxic people, so many whatever, and my life's just and I'm like, wait, was this literally? And I'm not, and I have to give myself credit, but it's not like I'm doing a whole ton of different shit. I literally just changed my brain, got my self-esteem, put some boundaries, and things are already getting better. So when you said like lose yourself, I'm like, yeah, literally. And with a narcissist, you have to abandon yourself to be in a relationship with them. That's how it works. They don't have equals. You're either here or here. So I had to be interacting with them, you have to abandon yourself. And I just couldn't do it anymore. It was detrimental.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't even know what else. Just wow. Yeah.
Yo, there are people that are living rent free in other people's heads right now because they work with them, because they have to, and it's scary. It's alarming, right? Because I know as an empathetic person, right? As somebody who has lost himself in the service of other people. That's my gift and the curse. You know what I'm saying? And when you come upon these types of individuals, you have to be so very careful, because at the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about you and what you allow. And my default is to get angry at, man, I fell for the banana in the tailpipe from the old Beverly Hills Cop movie, right? And I did it again. Man, I did it again. I let somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you get mad enough to or you get calm enough, or you get lost enough to really change. But the reason why this is so personal to me is because now that I've dealt with this, it's so easy to see what other people are going through with their non-productive relationship with the narcissist in the workplace. And it's like you feel like you want to rescue them, but then no matter what you say, what you do, they have to experience it for themselves and go through the cycle of that relationship for themselves. You can only give them tips. You can only give them indicators and show them where the red flags are. But at the end of the day, it's a personal decision on how you deal with narcissists, especially in the workplace. Because if you report to this person, or they have a higher authority than you, then and you lose yourself in that relationship, now they have access to you that's detrimental personally and professionally. So it's really important that I hope folks are getting something out of this from what you are articulating, Keyanna, because it's so important. I mean, this is why people are leaving. because people who aren't narcissists are buying into that mindset, telling and managing them in the workplace, you know, which is basically, so the narcissist is working vicariously through other people who aren't normally in making people's lives miserable, especially in these uncertain times. People are leaving without 2-week notices. Like, I can't do it no more, not one other day.
That was me.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was coaching somebody and they sent me an anecdote of somebody that, you know, quit their job by leaving a letter on their boss's desk on a Saturday evening. I'm like, wait. The first thing right there is it's Saturday evening.
I know he not going. I know she won't be in the office at this time.
But you are working.
Correct.
Unbelievable. So I think this is a very underrated, like you said at the top of the hour, Keyanna.
Can I say
yes
that the moment that there's this really key thing, and I think for myself and for other people, honestly, I couldn't break free from the narcissist or energy vampires, or even stand up for myself in any situation until my self-esteem went up. Because I was so, unfortunately, trauma can make you susceptible to manipulative behaviors. So my self-esteem was so low that I internally thought that that's what I deserved. Like, this treatment matches what I deserve, right? So sometimes when you're telling people, hey, you know, this behavior, if they don't believe that they don't deserve it, they're not gonna leave. And red flags, I think I've been seeing a lot of things circulating on social media, especially about work and jobs, like, girl, take that PTO. You don't have to tell them where you're going. Do this at work. You guys do that. And we're like telling each other, hey, like, these are the things that they're trying to like slide past us and they're making our lives really difficult. This is what, you know, we should be doing to protect ourselves, to advocate for ourselves. Because if you grew up around a bunch of red flags, they're not going to seem that dangerous. They're going to seem very comfortable. When you see one, you're gonna go, hey, instead of being like, ooh. So
Uncle Charlie.
Yeah. and that was, you know, people, I would read memes about red flags, but then I was in swarms of red flags because I literally, people just be like, watch out for red flags. And I'm like, got it. Not knowing what those are. So yeah, there are a lot of, you know, key things to go into people standing up for yourself. But, you know, boundaries, your job doesn't, as much as they feel like they do, your job doesn't own you.
Say yes. I knew she was gonna say it. Yes.
He said
yes.
Because one day this is gonna happen, Rob.
We all quit. Because you don't own me, sucker. That is my phrase.
You don't own me, sucker.
I tell folks all the time, no matter where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, whether it's in a relationship, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're working and getting billions of dollars, you are in an agreement with giving and sharing your time. It is the most valuable thing that you have. And what I got from this whole entire conversation is that narcissists, they understand the power of having someone else's time, right? That person is like, hey, I don't have enough time and I love myself. So I need other people who love me like I love me. I need other people to look at me how I look at me. And by doing that, they're spending more time on me, right? And even when we think about companies, that's what companies want us to do. And then people are going to say, oh, Rob, you're always bashing companies. No, I want people to think about themselves as the most important person in the equation.
Right.
It's not about being selfish. And I've been called selfish by a lot of people, awesome people, great people. And I'm like, yes, because the one thing that I do understand is when this thing is over, regardless of where we go, how we move, what you see on this platform today, it won't ever be. Like this form of me, this version of me won't be. So I'm like, I am okay with saying I want the most for me. I'm okay. And it's like, hey, allowing other people to encroach on you, right? And that's the one thing I always tell people. It doesn't matter if it's a CEO. No, you don't own me, sucker. I don't care. Like, we agreed to be together. We agreed to do things together. You don't own me. And I think that's the one thing that just listening to you and what I can infer and what I can understand, it's like, hey, you're going to be in these relationships. And truthfully, they are relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Some are going to be sprints and some are marathons. They are relationships. Your job at all point in time is to understand what type of relationship you have. Why are you in it? What's the benefit for you? What's the benefit for the other person? If you realize that person does not have your best interests at any point in time, then you're in the wrong place. And I'm always questioning. I can meet someone and they can pull a God card on me. I had the biggest dream. Oh my goodness, Robin, you were there. And if I get the feeling, and that's why it kind of shook me and woke me. Like, I would always get this feeling about people. And then we were like, man. And he was like, Robin, you don't want to rock with them? And I'm like, nah. He was like, nah, but they about to do something for $1 million. But I'm like, no, because my gut just said, this is going to be some nonsense. I might get $1 million and lose both my legs. No, they can keep the whole entire thing because my gut is what I follow, and I'm okay with that.
Right. Right. So, Keyanna, for the people who help people, for the most vulnerable, psychologically and safe people, for the givers, for those that don't have boundaries, those that go in and invest their time and their being into helping people, those people that display empathy at high levels and or are empaths, what would your advice be for these people when dealing with narcissists generally and specifically in the workplace? Now, I've heard you say boundaries is key and not losing yourself. What are some other things that you would add to that equation?
Definitely empaths. I believe that in general we need to spend a lot of time by ourselves and we need to get to know ourselves, get to know your purpose and build your self-esteem more, because I think there's nothing worse than an unrealized empath going through the world like a little sponge, soaking up everyone's shit. And I don't know, I'm trying to think. Advocate for yourself, standing up for yourself, even if that means taking a chance at work, because Lord knows I'm the type, I won't say something till I die. Like, if it bothers me, I really won't say anything. Wow. But at work, I really had to start practicing. Okay, if you're bothered, Keyanna, you need to talk to somebody. You need to talk to the right person. This one says no, that's fine. Go to the next person. It's like this, it was, I don't know, it was like work. It felt I was like tired advocating for myself. But, really spend time with yourself, know your purpose, just like you say, like the ins and out, the why. I feel like we can just be so on autopilot sometimes, and that's how we get into these situations. And just do a little quick like relationship review in your head. How are my relationships going with my parents, family, friends, anybody I'm having a little problems with? And communication with empaths, because boundaries and stuff, that's like really hard for us. But I think stepping outside our comfort zone and what we're used to for ourselves, to put ourselves first, because I realize if I'm not putting myself first and I'm helping people, what I call it is trauma helping. I'm helping you from a place of stress and a place of my inner child not feeling seen. So to me, if you're trauma helping me, I don't want your help, boo-boo. Go fix yourself and come back when you can get like some authentic, real help. Don't people please on me. So I think that's like one really key thing as an empath. You have to realize you are not authentically helping somebody if you're not good. and I want to authentically help, right? So I have to be okay first.
Right.
Wow.
Very, very poignant advice. Very poignant advice. What you think, Rob?
To be a people person, to be someone who wants to help people, and this is, I'm taking this straight from you, and it just really sounds awesome. Not to be, we're trying not to be selfish. We want to help people, but not recognizing. And this is and I use this example every time I get on a plane. Every time I have I go somewhere and I speak, I'll do a training. The biggest mistake that we make is that we don't put our own mask on, right? You ever get on a plane and they say, hey, regardless if you have a child with you, whether it's an elderly person, if the oxygen level goes down, the first person you have to take care of is yourself, right? Because so often we get caught up trying to put the mask on for other people, right? Let's just say it's empaths. We're trying to figure out everybody else's problems. We have so many problems ourselves, we don't take the time to deal with our own issue.
Yeah.
Right? And the craziest thing, sometimes if we just sat back and said, well, man, what are all the relationships that have really negatively impact me? What do they all have in common? And then when you figure that out, and then you take another step back and you say, hey, is this also something that I've seen before I was consciously getting into relationships? Because you can go, and this is what I heard from what you were saying. And is it something from my parents? Is it something from my brother? Is it something from my sister? These things that I accept may also be things that I didn't know I was getting from an early age.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to understand who I am, if I'm truly into helping people, I need to be able to take a step back and say, well, how do I keep running into these people? Well, here's the crazy thing. They told you, Keyanna, they said, hey, look out for red flags. But in your family, red flags are orange. Right? In your family, red flags are blue, green, purple. So as you're meeting these other people, in your mind, you're like, well, they're not red flags, so these not the bad things. I could deal with John. I can deal with Tim. I can deal with Rob and Jamal because their flags are orange and blue and green. But if a joker pop up on me in my inbox or DMing me, and I pick up and it's a red flag, oh, I'm cutting them loose, right? That's why you ever realize, and I'll end it with this, you ever realize there's women and men who, when they actually catch the red flag, they act like they've always been catching red flags. But for the friends and the family members who've always been around them, they're like, well, what about the other 10 dudes that you was over here, or the other 10 women you was messing with that they were nuts? Like, they really were doing things that were narcissistic. They were really selfish. They were out for themselves. They were doing all these different, we just didn't work out. Well, if you think that person was bad, what about this person?
Right.
And a lot of times we don't even recognize that we have these type of people around because they're so similar to people who've been in our life.
Yeah.
They are so similar that it's like, man, he reminds me of my brother. Oh, like, man, my brother got a great relationship, but there are some things in that relationship that have negatively impacted you, and you haven't dealt with it yet.
Yeah. And
you go out and you find somebody who's like your sister, who's like your brother, and you think that makes sense to you, but it harms you.
Right.
It harms you, and because you haven't put your mask on yet, you haven't breathed in the oxygen, and you out here, you seeing other people, and you trying to help them, and they fighting you, and then you're like, yo, how in the world am I? I don't even have asthma. And then next thing you know, you're
right.
or you crawling, right? You're crawling because you ever realize that there's people who they were like, if I didn't make it to therapy, I would have died, right? Those are the people who they probably were conscious, was conscious enough to be able to say like, yo, I need help. But you also in recognizing a lot of times that we need help and outside help. I mean, that means we're really close to a situation that can go very, very bad, or is on its way of going bad, or is already bad. And luckily, you were close enough and cognizant enough to get there before you over there having an asthma attack and you're doing some harmful things to yourself. Right. So, yeah.
Patterns are key. Yeah.
So what we do customarily after we've actually asked you everything that we wanted to flesh out our current subject matter, which tonight is narcissists. Keyanna, you as our special guest, we want to give you a final word to say anything that might be on your mind, to go over something that we may have not stated yet, or just give us a tidbit on this subject matter that you are the current resident subject matter expert in the room. Give us something, before we give you your time back after being so gracious and sharing your evening with us.
Yeah, of course. Well, I just want to thank you guys for incorporating the topic, because like I said, it's not studied a lot in the mental health community, and it's very, very misunderstood. So, bringing it to the table, and especially in real life situations like work, is, super important. But I think the real key is really know yourself. Like I said, sometimes we're on autopilot so hard. And with the narcissist, what I eventually did find out what is wrong. And I hated that. I'm like, man, I had to stay the whole time to find out what was wrong. But for people that have like strong narcissistic tendencies or NPD during their child's emotional development, unfortunately in the environment that they had, they were not able to develop their self-worth from their caregivers. So your self-worth, your purpose, your personality all goes into your ego and how you function in society and how you get your needs met in a rational way. And those needs can be emotional, physical, anything like that. So usually if you see a narcissist, they're getting their needs met in some weird ways because unfortunately they didn't have that emotional development to learn how to regulate their own emotions. So from there, they have to have external regulations. And I see that in the classroom. When I was teaching, I could tell like this kid knows how to emotionally regulate themselves. This kid doesn't. Like you could really, just even see it in how kids act and how they respond. Narcissism is a pattern that developed from a lot of times childhood, and how far it develops, depends on the genes and things like that. But as we were talking, I kind of got like down because I'm like, damn, like narcissism and combating it and these patterns, it takes a lot of self-reflection. But I do have a lot of faith in everybody alive today that's involved in mental health and empathy. In the workspace, there's, really big conversations, especially on LinkedIn. I take LinkedIn courses, empathy, how to be more empathetic in the workplace. Like we're really trying. But it does take a lot of self-reflection that unfortunately I don't think our culture really encourages or celebrates. Like some countries, they have nap times, like they culturally take naps and you have time to sit and think. And if you're not sitting, thinking and reflecting,
sleep.
Yeah, autopilot. So especially with these patterns, me personally, I just realized my own relationship pattern. And I looking at my dad, looking at my exes, and I'm like, oh shit. But that took a lot of thinking, and it's very obvious now. But unfortunately, if I didn't sit there and think, I'd still be like running around chasing. So I really think there are a lot of components to this. But self-reflection, you wake up and go to bed with yourself every day. It's just you. And I think realizing that really pressed me forward to, okay, advocate for myself, stand up for myself, put up boundaries, like how I survive, how the mechanisms that I used to survive as a child, I don't have to use those anymore. I can speak up. No one's going to hit me if I say no. No one's going to yell at me if I do this. Like, I'm safe. So there's a lot of components to combating narcissism, but I think as a whole, especially Black people, I think we're really coming up on self-love, self-care, advocating ourselves. I just want to, encourage us to keep going. It's really important work. If they think you're selfish, if they think you're acting different or funny, who cares? Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, it's customary with all of our guests, just for me and Rob to inform you that if there's ever a time that you want to push something forward, there's anything that you think of, anything that you hear.
I feel a book coming.
Right. Anything that you hear, see, or read that you think would benefit the Level Up Past Corporate Trauma podcast and audience, you have an open invitation. Just let us know. Really appreciate you. This is not easy to talk about. It's not easy to write about. It's not easy to sit with yourself and think about. But I encourage anyone who's out there in the audience, throw some likes in the comment, throw some comments. Even if you didn't like tonight's conversation, put that in there. I encourage you to go back and listen to it, piece by piece, and meditate over yourself and people that are in your life or have been in your life, and that you are impacted or affected by, positively or negatively, if they fit the description of the narcissist. So thank you so much. Don't go nowhere, and we will close out. We're gonna land this plane, Rob. Man, what a great conversation. And I just wanted to add, narcissists are energy spirit killers, energy vampires, right? I heard Keyanna say that.
She said it a couple of times.
Yeah, she said it a couple of times. So don't be so delectable, right? Don't be so, when you see them coming, you know who they are and you know what they want. Don't give them what they need, right? Be boring, right? Be, especially in the workplace, be very clear and concise. Meeting with them, or you're having a conversation with them, have an agenda. Make sure you stay on point. Don't get distracted, because this is the emotional data that the narcissist is going to need in order to derive information to use at a later date to your detriment. They call themselves investigators, but they're really snouted beings looking to uncover stuff about you that they can use to their benefit, right? So, be clear and just stay calm. Don't, we have to, I saw a great post. We shouldn't be ruled by our emotions, Rob. We need to be guided by them so that we can rise above our emotions into more forms of higher cognition and thinking and rationalization of, all right, what do I really want out of this situation, this conversation with this individual? So we need to do that with respect to the narcissist. So Rob, what you got, man? Last words on you before we land this plane.
I'll just say that was awesome. I enjoyed it, and just her genuine approach to the whole entire topic, and being able to relate what she's seen, what she's experienced, and dropping small bits and pieces of her history and things that has happened around her. And I hope that people really can process and just take a step back and say, hey, if I am interacting with certain people, let me not just think about them and what they're doing to me, but let me also think about what role I'm playing. That personal accountability is key. And being able to take a step back and say, hey, what could I be doing different? How should I look at it? It's not that I got to blame myself, but it's let me figure out what I control and start to control it. And I'll leave it there.
That's exactly right. It's all about you. So until we see you next week with another great topic and conversation, me and my main man, Rob, remember, corporate trauma is a sneaky passive trauma that will creep up on you And when it does, what you gonna do, Rob?
Kick his ass.
You're supposed to say level up. I told you, everybody, he's from Jersey.
I told y'all about doing that. Man, listen. The first thing came to my mind, listen, we gonna level up, all right. It's gonna be some pain in the building. No, but listen, definitely, man. Leveling up for real.
Until we see you again, have a great week.
Peace.
And reach out to us. We're on all major platforms. Look at this episode again, and we love your feedback. Appreciate y'all. Until we see you again, have a great, fantastic week. Later.
Awesome. Later.